So you want to own a prison, guaranteed customers, guaranteed government checks, zero marketing spend because nobody chooses to be a repeat customer here by accident. It sounds like the most recession-proof business on the planet, a captive market. Literally, it isn't recession-proof, it's occupancy-proof, and those are not the same thing because the entire model runs on a single number the public never hears about. A number buried in a contract clause that decides whether your facility prints money or bleeds it dry. Empty beds don't just sit there quietly. Empty beds cost you. Here's how deep this goes. Tier 1. Bootstrapped. A county contracts you to run a single work release annex or a regional holding facility. 200 beds. Maybe less. Startup capital, $2 to $4 million, mostly refurbishing an existing building because nobody wants to be the operator who broke ground on a brand new one and got the zoning fight of their life. Tier 2. Mid-market. A state department of corrections puts a 500 to 800 bed facility out to bid. You're building from scratch now or acquiring a shuttered one. $30 to $80 million. This is where the real per-inmate math starts to matter because you're competing against public facilities that don't have to turn a profit, and you do. Tier 3. Institutional. You're not running a prison anymore. You're running a portfolio. Multiple state contracts, federal immigration detention beds, maybe a real estate investment trust wrapped around the whole thing so Wall Street can buy shares in incarceration without ever setting foot near a cell block. $500 million and up. At this tier, the company isn't selling security, it's selling predictable cash flow to pension funds. Different tiers, same underlying trapdoor. Here's the mechanism, and it's dead simple once you see it. This is a hotel that never wants an empty room, except the guests didn't book the stay and can't check out early. Revenue comes from something called the per diem rate, a fixed dollar amount the government pays you for every inmate every single day. $60, $90. Sometimes over 200 for specialized populations. Multiply that by beds filled 365 days a year, and you have your top line. But per diem alone doesn't protect you. So the industry invented a second mechanism, the bed guarantee, a clause written directly into most contracts requiring the government to pay you for a minimum occupancy level. Usually 90 to 95%, whether or not they actually send you that many people. Read that again. You get paid for beds nobody is sleeping in. This is the counterintuitive fact that violates every normal rule of business logic. Falling crime rates are a threat to your revenue. A safer state is a worse customer. Your other core metric is average daily population, or ADP. It's not a head count. It's the number your entire operating budget, your staffing ratios, and your investor guidance are built around. Miss your projected ADP, and the spreadsheet doesn't just wobble, it collapses. Now walk the actual floor plan, because nothing here is accidental. The architecture isn't designed for comfort, it's designed for staffing ratios, and staffing is your single largest controllable cost, running 50 to 70% of your operating budget. Open dormitory pods instead of individual cells. Why? One officer can visually supervise 60 people in an open pod. That same officer can watch maybe 12 1/4 of individual cells. The floor plan is a direct calculated trade against your headcount line item. Sight lines matter more than square footage. Central control towers, curved walls, elevated observation posts. Every angle is engineered so the fewest possible bodies in uniform can monitor the largest possible population. And here's the invisible liability sitting underneath the blueprint. Understaffing isn't a side effect of cost cutting. It's frequently the entire cost-cutting strategy. Run below required staffing levels long enough, and you don't save money. You accumulate risk in the form of lawsuits, contract violations, and eventually the state pulling out entirely. The building looks efficient. The building is actually a liability wearing an efficiency costume. 2 case studies, both real, both fatal to the businesses involved in very different ways. First, capital structure. In 2006, Willacy County, Texas, financed a private immigration detention center through municipal bonds, essentially borrowing against future per diem revenue from federal contracts before that revenue ever existed. The facility, built from Kevlar tents and nicknamed Ricardo, relied almost entirely on continued federal detention flow to service its debt. In 2015, a riot over medical care conditions damaged the facility so severely that federal authorities terminated the contract. The revenue stopped instantly. The bond payments did not. The county defaulted. A prison built on leverage against a promise of future bodies collapsed the moment that promise broke. Second, market mismatch and operational friction. Walnut Grove Youth Correctional Facility in Mississippi, operated under private contract, was designed to house young offenders at a rate that made the state's per diem payments attractive to the operator. But actually running a juvenile facility safely requires far higher staffing ratios and specialized training than a standard adult pod. The operator didn't adjust the cost structure to match. Understaffing, inadequate supervision, and documented violence escalated until federal investigators described conditions as unconstitutional. The Department of Justice intervened. The contract was terminated in 2016. The facility that once generated steady per diem income became, instead, one of the most cited failures in the industry's history. One died from too much debt against a fragile revenue stream. The other died from running the wrong cost structure against the wrong population. Different diseases. Same terminal outcome. The contract disappears, and with it, every dollar of projected future revenue. Strip away the razor wire, and the equation is almost insultingly clean. Revenue equals per diem rate multiplied by guaranteed occupancy minus staffing cost minus the litigation risk nobody prices in until it's due. Net margins in this industry typically run 8 to 15%, thinner than most people assume for a business built on guaranteed government payments because the staffing line and the legal exposure line eat everything the occupancy guarantee protects. CoreCivic, formerly known as Corrections Corporation of America, built the modern version of this playbook starting in the 1980s. Pioneer the per diem contract, lobby for the bed guarantee, then restructure into a real estate investment trust to make the cash flow attractive to institutional capital that would never touch the word prison directly. So here's the actual balance sheet underneath the mission statements about rehabilitation and public safety. The system isn't built to reward a full facility running well. It's built to reward a facility that's contractually guaranteed to be full regardless of whether it's run well at all. The builder gets paid either way. The state carries the liability. And the only people with zero leverage in the entire arrangement are the ones who never had a say in walking through the door.